Real quick, just want to let you guys know that Ironside Computers is doing a fall 2019 PC giveaway of a handcrafted and hand-painted gaming computer. It has an i7-9700K, 2070, great specs all around. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description. Pretty awesome computer, and I definitely recommend entering in the giveaway. Hey, what's up guys? It's Nick2. Today I'm going to be showing you guys a really fantastic Zane build, pretty much just meant for melting bosses. So if you're trying to farm some loot or anything like that, this is going to be the build that you're going to want to try to set yourself up for. As you can see, melts bosses pretty fast, and my build is super far away from being anywhere near the max potential that it could be. There's so many things that I want to upgrade on this build, and some other stuff you can do to maximize its damage. So the potential here is amazing, especially if you have way better gear than I do. I don't even have that good of stuff, so let's get right into it. First off, we're just going to go over how we have everything set up in terms of the build, and then we are going to talk about gear afterwards and how it synergizes well with the build. Pretty much what we're going to do is we're trying to unlock See in Red so that every time we activate an action skill, it's going to pop all of our kill skills, and then we're going to use the fact that we have all of our kill skills damage bonuses, and we're just going to try to melt the boss within the duration of our action skills. So starting off, we're going to put 5 into Violent Speed and then 5 into Violent Momentum. These aren't going to give us a ton of additional damage because you're not typically going to be able to, completely utilize max movement speed while you're fighting bosses and stuff, but you have to get further down into this tree anyways, and it is a decent amount of additional damage regardless. The next thing we're going to go into is we can easily go into Cool Hand or we can go into Salvation. I go into Cool Hand because I don't notice myself really taking all that much damage, but if you're taking damage and you want more survivability, you can go 5 into Salvation. Cool Hand is nice though because it does give you an okay amount of reload speed. You don't necessarily need that. Once you have the build set up perfectly, you should be able to kill stuff within even having to reload one Lyuta clip. But for now, we're going to be putting 5 points into that. Next, we're going to put 1 point into Death Falls Close. This is just going to increase the effectiveness and the duration of all of our kill skills, which is super strong. Next thing we're going to go into is 5 into Violent Violence. That's just a ton of extra fire rate, 25% fire rate that we're going to get for a pretty decent amount of time. So that's really strong. Then we're going to go 5 into Playing Dirty. Playing Dirty is good, but it's not super good. It's good because there's not really anywhere else we want to put these points. It's really good if you have the build set up to a point to where you're actually able to kill the boss within like the first clip. But if you don't have a whole lot of damage potential from the get-go, meaning that like you're not really gaining a whole lot of extra damage from having those extra 5 shots in the beginning, if you're not perfectly set up, those extra 5 shots isn't going to be a huge amount of extra damage. But we go into this because there's really nowhere else that we want to put our points for, so it's worth going into. If you do the math on this, it could be, it really depends on your setup, but it could be more worth it to go further down into this tree and try to unlock Double Barrel, but it's most likely not going to be. So I'm just going to go 5 into Playing Dirty. This is particularly good when using something that has, doesn't shoot a whole lot of bullets. So a Lyuta or maybe any sniper. If you're using like a fully auto gun, this isn't going to be as helpful because those extra 5 shots aren't going to be as impactful as they would be on a gun that has a lower fire rate. And then we're just going to go 1 point into See in Red. We're pretty much ignoring Good Misfortune because we don't really care about the duration of our action skills. Usually we can kill the boss within the duration of our action skills, but if you're noticing that it's taking you a little bit longer to kill the boss and maybe your action skills run out, you could decide to skip a couple points into Playing Dirty or maybe skip a couple points into Cool Hand and then put the points into Good Misfortune to give you extra duration on your action skills. Next thing we're going to go into is 5 into Synchronicity. This is going to give you extra gun damage per active action skill. I believe when it's at 5, I don't remember the number. What is it, 20% or something? Yeah, it should be 20%. So that would be 40% extra gun damage when you have both your skills up, which is just huge extra damage. Then we're going to go 3 into Praemunitus, whatever. That's going to give you 25% extra mag size, which means less reloading. This isn't a must-have, but it's pretty strong. And then we definitely want to go 5 into Donnybrook. This is going to give you extra 19% gun damage whenever you activate a kill skill, which is really strong. And it's also going to give the damage to your clone, which is okay. It doesn't really help you out too much, but might as well. And then we're going to go 5 into Borrowed Time. This is just to give you additional action skill duration. But the main thing is we just want to put a couple points in there so that we can unlock 3 into Supersonic Man. You could allocate the rest of these points elsewhere if you wanted to. Getting Supersonic Man isn't a huge amount of additional damage, but it is pretty helpful just because it's giving you that movement speed, which is going to pair nicely with Violent Momentum, giving you extra gun damage, the faster that you move. But if you're wanting to put those points elsewhere and you're noticing that you're not really needing that damage, you could decide to do that. But I don't really think there's anywhere else worth putting the points. Some people put some points into Duct Tape mod. The first shot fired has a chance to just also fire a grenade. Maybe if your grenade does like a sizable amount of damage, it's worth. But honestly, I think it's more worth it to go into Borrowed Time. Even if your build is set up to where the majority of the time you're going to kill the boss within the duration of your action skill, I would still pop this just in case for those one-off situations where maybe, the modifiers aren't working in your favor and you need that extra few seconds of having your action skills up to take advantage of synchronicity. And as you can see, I have a class mod here that gives me 4 into this, which is going to give me an extra 32% overall gun damage when I have my skills, both of them up, which is huge that I have that class mod. It's probably not the best class mod, and we'll get right into that. But before I do, depending upon or whatever things you want to use Sentinel because the duration of Sentinel is really long. And then I just go into Bad Dose, giving you extra movement speed and attack speed and stuff. And then you can go into Doomsday or any of these other things. I honestly don't ever notice the damage from this because it is so negligible. Hopefully these are going to get buffed in the future. I believe Gearbox said that they plan on buffing these skills, so look out for some skill-oriented builds in the future when that does officially happen. Until then, just use whatever, but Bad Dose is probably going to be the only thing worth going for since it's going to buff you. Some people like to go with Barrier in this setup, and then they actually spec like 5 points into Adrenaline just to give them extra skill cooldown rate, and maybe you could go into some stuff for your shield, depending upon what shield you're using, so that you can get Charge Relay, which is going to give you extra reload speed and movement speed. I don't notice that I necessarily need this, and I would rather just go further down into here and get some, extra duration here and Supersonic Man, and then I'd rather just use Digiclone. Digiclone will end up doing more damage in the new update. I didn't mean to do that, but it'll end up doing more damage when the new update comes out, and usually it's not going to get killed, but if you're noticing your Digiclone's getting killed, you can use Barrier, and you could even put 5 points down into here if you wanted to, and you could just omit some points elsewhere. But for me, I just, don't really think it's worth, and I just go for the clone. But you could still use the Barrier even without any of the augments on it. You're really only using your skills just to activate your kill skills. That's literally the only reason, and to take full advantage of synchronicity. The damage or the effects that these give you is so negligible that it's honestly not even worth worrying about, at least at the moment. But yeah, you could, in terms of what you put on the clone, it literally does not matter. All of these are pretty useless. I just wouldn't use something that is going to make the clone take damage like this one, because then your clone's going to get shot, and then you're not going to have your skill duration buffs. Moving on into the gear that we're using, for pretty much any boss killing build, I like to use a Lyuda. Another honorable mention is Cutsman. Those are both very high DPS weapons that are super strong. I have this one that I like to use for Grave Ward because it's fire, and anything that shoots ×2 is really strong. As you can see, the base damage of this is significantly higher than that of my Molten Lyuda. It does shoot 2 bullets per shot, so it's also going to just pump out more damage, and that means it's going to take more advantage of whatever it's called over here, playing dirty, because those shots aren't going to count as per ammo per shot or whatever, so it's actually shooting 2 bullets. So you're actually shooting an extra 10 bullets with the perk rather than shooting an extra just 5, so that's pretty nice. But a Fire Lyuda is going to be your best bet. I'd like to get one that is fire and has this augmented effect that on action skill end you deal extra weapon damage to badass named and boss enemies for a short time. That's a pretty good augment, or whatever you want to call that. There's probably some other good ones that I could get. Like I said, this build is far from perfect, and there's a lot of things that I would like to do. In terms of my class mod, I know this probably looks stupid, but it seems to work out really good with this build. I'm mainly using this because it has a 30% sniper rifle damage, but I mean, +4 into synchronicity is actually pretty insane if you think about it. The action skill cooldown rate isn't really helping me out there. I could get just flat weapon damage or something, and that would be pretty nuts. But the sniper rifle damage and synchronicity, really strong there. Other class mods you could go for, any of the, where is it? Let me try to find it. Something like this would be okay. No, not that one, not that one. I lied. Something like this is pretty good. Any of the sonic boom ones, these give you a decent amount of extra damage just because it's, you know, Zane's weapon damage and movement speed are increased the lower that your shield is, and then you'd want to use, you know, like the Rough Rider paired with that. That's really strong. That's why I have the Rough Rider on. Honestly, I forgot to just take it off. So yeah, you'd want to use the Rough Rider paired with that, and that's just going to give you extra weapon damage and extra movement speed. And then whenever you activate an action skill, it's going to break your shield. If you don't have a Rough Rider, it's going to do that anyways for you. Other than that, you could use the other one. No, because that one doesn't work actually. So I just try to get either one of these Boom Infiltrator ones and try to get one that focuses on Supersonic Man and Violent Momentum, and then pair it with a Rough Rider. Or you could just try to get something that gives you a ton of synchronicity and just some flat weapon damage bonuses. I'm pretty dumb and forgot to take off Rough Rider. So what else you could use? I honestly don't really know in terms of the shield. I'm sure there's some shields that give you some good augments and stuff. What you could do is you could use a shield with pretty decent capacity size, like Transformer or something like that. Or you could even use something with like an augment. I could have just used this just to give me extra movement speed just for more damage. But regardless, I could use something like this that has a decent capacity. And then I could use a relic like this one. And as you saw in the video, I didn't even take advantage of this relic. If I did, I would have killed the boss way faster. But I could just slap this relic on, which makes it to where whenever I suffer an elemental effect, it increases my damage with that same element. So just right before the boss, all I have to do is just shoot myself with like fire, for example, since I'm using a fire gun. I just shoot myself with a fire weapon, cause myself to set myself on fire, and then I'll do 90% extra fire damage, which is massive. The main reason I'm using this is just for the magazine size. I honestly don't really have any good artifacts or relics. You kind of want to prioritize anything that's going to give you, sniper rifle damage or Vladoff damage, maybe crit damage. Magazine size is obviously really nice, but once you start getting the build perfectly set up, you might not even need the additional bullets in order to kill the boss within that short window, and then you could just prioritize getting flat damage instead. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to make it better. Obviously, I could have, augmented effects on pretty much, or anointed rather, on pretty much all of my stuff that I simply just don't have at the moment. And I could have, imagine I had flat off weapon fire rate or flat just 25% weapon damage on, on here I could get, just instead of action skill cooldown rate, I could get weapon damage. On here I could get the mag size and Vladoff weapon damage and flat weapon damage. And then on my this I could have a better anointed effect. On my gun I could have a better anointed effect. I could even have a better shield in general. I could min-max by having a gun where I set myself on fire with it. And then the damage would be even crazier, but as it stands right now, it's still pretty strong, and it's definitely good enough to farm bosses with. Sometimes if the Mayhem modifiers aren't too good, it could be a problem. But for the most part, it's pretty strong. In terms of what other artifact you want, I don't really think any of them are all that strong. Maybe you could go with like temporary invulnerability. Maybe you could use like a cryo Lyuda, depending upon the boss that you're fighting, and then get something that gives you extra damage against the cryo enemies. But honestly, any artifact that is going to make it to where you take elemental, or you do extra elemental damage based on the elemental damage you're taking, that'll make it to where you can kill any boss in a very short period of time, especially with how you're stacking all of your kill skills and you're just trying to do a condensed burst period of damage. So if you just make yourself, on fire, then you can just burn straight through the bosses. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.